Welcome to the Placer County Board of Supervisors special meeting Tuesday, March 7th, 2023. Supervisor Gustafson will attend the meeting via Zoom from 3200 Beachcomber Drive, Morro Bay. The agenda has been posted at this location. We'll start with a flag salute led by Supervisor Gore.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to begin with a report from County Executive Officer Jane Christensen.
Thank you, Board Chair, and thank you to those viewing from home and in the audience here today. We are pleased with this special meeting to set the table for the board to ratify the local emergency declaration made last week and to share out from our many disciplines working on behalf of our communities throughout Placer County, from OES, from Placer County Sheriff's Office, from Placer County Fire, CAL FIRE, and our Public Works Department. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dave Atkinson of our Office of Emergency Services.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board. Dave Atkinson, Assistant Director of Emergency Services. And as the CEO mentioned, we are here today to seek your board's ratification of the proclamation of the existence of a local emergency in Placer County due to the impacts of the series of winter storms that started on February 26, 2023 and are ongoing. As your board is aware, our region has been impacted by a series of several winter storms that started at the end of February this year. These most recent storms, of course, came on the heels of the storms which we just experienced in late December and all the way through January that ultimately resulted in a federal major disaster declaration for several counties across California, including Placer. So just a couple of slides to bring your board, give you some perspective on the winter we've had so far. So this first slide just shows the snowfall that we've had in December, January, and February compared to the different averages at the Central Sierra Snow Lab that is run by UC Berkeley. So you can see significantly higher than above average. And then, of course, that came with that is not only the scope of the snow, and also the fact that we had a lot of low snow, and that'll be important as Public Works talks to you a little bit here later on about the impacts that they experienced. And then, of course, just to give you some perspective on exactly where that fell, what that looks like when it's everywhere. And then, of course, along with the snow, of course, came the winds, and we had multi-day shutdowns of Interstate 80 for just truly whiteout conditions. So the Emergency Operations Center has been staffed for this entire event. And of course, our main mission is providing resources to our first responders. And here's a picture of us getting a generator delivered to Station 98 up in Alta when they lost power. But of course, our mission includes more than just providing resources to first responders. We surged the 211 system, and we had 20 escalations. And the way that works is someone calls 211, if they can't be connected with resources through 211, if they have some kind of special circumstances, then that call will either be moved on to Freed in the Independent Living Center, which PG&E has contracted with to assist during the storm, or to our Health and Human Services. And out of that, we had 6 calls, Colfax, 1 Dutch Flat, 12 from Forest Hill. And of course, some of those resulted in some hotel rooms and some other assistance. Using 211 in this way also provides us with good situational awareness about what are exactly the needs out there that people are seeing, whether it's we're trapped in our driveway, we need help with fuel, whatever it might be. That just gives us a good sense, at least for those reaching out to 211, exactly what's happening out there. Of course, public information is incredibly important during these types of events. We activated our Joint Information Center, which is where we bring together the public information folks from several agencies so that we have a good coordinated message. We, of course, responded to multiple media requests. And then, of course, we have our Ready Placer dashboard, which continues to see just an incredible amount of traffic. And this is a place where you can see information about the weather, road conditions. When we did have evacuations, which you'll hear about a little bit from the avalanche, we had the avalanche evacuation warning maps up, things like that. So our goal is to make that a one-stop shop for people to get information during these types of events. Of course, another important thing that we do in the Emergency Operations Center is we're tracking impacts, and whether it's impacts to private property, such as this here, or to public infrastructure, incredibly important as we work through, such as the closures of I-80, things like that that I mentioned, helps us understand exactly what's going on. And then, of course, we want to track restoration as things come back online. Pleased to report, as of this morning, this report, PG&E has us down to 96 outages, which is down from over 6,000 at the peak of this. And at least my last check, I-80 is open with a little bit of chain control, so far better condition than we've been. And of course, we're not done yet. Another set of storms on the way. This one looks a little bit different. I think the story here is going to be more about rain and possibly flooding than it has been about snow removal. So with that, I just wanted to mention that we have several folks here today. So I have Sergeant Ty Connors with Placer County Sheriff's Office, Placer County Fire Marshal Ryan Westner, Director of Public Works Ken Grimm, and of course your Road Superintendent Matt Randall. And with that, I will pass the baton over to Sergeant Connors.
Chair, members of the board, Sergeant Ty Connors. Oh, thanks, Dave, again. Chair, members of the board, Sergeant Ty Connors of the Placer County Sheriff's Office. I'd like to just kind of give you a quick snapshot of kind of our response and how we dealt with all the numerous calls that, during this winter event. All the numbers I'm giving you now are basically from February 26th to today, kind of when the peak of our storm. As far as for calls for service, during that time I extracted all the calls that were basically related to the storm, not our normal calls for service for patrol. We handled over 142 calls for service related to the winter storm. Our primary responsibility areas that we responded to is obviously in Forest Hill, Colfax, Gold Run, and Alta, and also obviously some locations up in Tahoe as well for the East Slope. Again, a lot of these people are not used to having this amount of snow for this amount of time, so again, why we really focused a lot of efforts up into those areas. Typical calls that we were receiving were down trees, power lines across roadways. A good portion of our calls for service were welfare checks for families that couldn't get in touch with their elderly families or anybody else because of the power being out. They were unable to contact them through the phone, and obviously with the roadways being blocked and not being able to access them, they called for us to help out. Obviously, this dealt with a different kind of way of response for us and not just a typical patrol car, and I'll go over that as far as how our upstaffing and equipment went. Unfortunately, again, majority of the calls were the welfare checks, but we did have one fatality with the elderly female up in Forest Hill who got crushed by her porch awning that collapsed due to the snow load on the porch. As far as our upstaffing went, again, we reached out to our snowmobiles, deputies. So we had 4 snowmobiles and 2 snowcats that were completely dedicated to the calls for service, especially on the welfare check portion of it. A lot of those welfare checks were very successful when it came to just making sure they're doing okay, but also some of the medical rescues that came out of it as well. Also, Tahoe used their PCSO, Kubota, and snowblower as well to try and get their equipment out in order to respond to a lot of the calls that were coming up. Other than our standard patrol staffing, we had over 20 personnel above and beyond patrol handling calls for service for the winter storm, which required about 298 hours of overtime that was basically dedicated just to the response to complete the mission at tasks. As far as some of the highlights I wanted to show you, obviously there's a lot of moving parts going in here, and I think some of the good success stories out of it. One of them, again, thinking outside the box at how we can solve problems. Telecom reached out to us. The Gold Run repeater site, which is actually a very vital repeater for us for the primary link for our radios for first responders along the I-80 corridor. At the time, without power, obviously they rely then on their battery power. And with snow over the solar panels, they were unable to charge the batteries, which then they relied on a smaller generator, which the staffing for that was required to fill it every 4 hours. And the only way to access this location was with a snowcat. So there's a lot of moving parts. So trying to figure out staffing for every 4 hours, we figured out a plan, and we had our search and rescue snowcat tow that trailer up the snow hill and got it, and it was a successful mission, and obviously increasing the time for us not having to go up there every 4 hours. Right now there is power to that location, so thanks to PG&E. As far as we did have a medical rescue, this again working with our partners on the east slope. We had an elderly family in their 70s that basically like to hike to their cabin, do it often. Anyways, they go, and obviously with the heavy snow, they stayed there for a while. They were fine until the female had a medical event and they couldn't get out. Our snowcat at the time was busy doing other welfare checks, so we reached out to our Tahoe Nordic Search and Rescue and our Tahoe substation, and they responded with a snowcat from the east slope over to Kingvale. Got up to that location. They actually dug the family out of the house, took them down to their car, where actually the fire department waiting for us dug the car out of the snow. And so that way, when she was medically clear, they were able to drive to the hospital on their own. So again, good collaboration by everyone and the fire department and everybody else to solve that incident. And obviously, the last one, most of the one on this big storm is our avalanche that occurred up in the Olympic Village. Obviously, an avalanche at 25 feet high, 200 yards wide, has some pretty devastating effects and slammed right into the side of a 3-story apartment building. Again, fortunately, with a quick response by a bunch of allied agencies, we had Olympic Valley Fire, we had our Palisades Ski Patrol, our Tahoe Nordic Search and Rescue, and the Sheriff's Office all responding to help, and they helped extract about 4 people out of that building. No injuries were reported, and everyone got out safely. Obviously, the 2 floors got heavily impacted, and we didn't post any of these pictures, except for this one. So this is what it looked like inside some of the homes from the snow that came inside. So obviously, huge impact to that, and a lot of work went into it for a successful mission. I just do want to thank to our partners in OES with Dave and Ryan, and again, his staff. Just having that seamless communication with all of us in there has been very successful. And again, I really appreciate all the hard work that everyone's been doing. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to Chief Wisner.
Thank you.
Right button.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Holmes and members of the board. I'm Ryan Wessner, and in this capacity, I'm representing a fire and rescue branch of Placer County OES. On last Tuesday, when the storm started, we started our upstaffing immediately. We started it on Monday, and I wanted to just start off with the types of calls that we went to are trees down, weather-related, trees into power lines, the community without power, and access issues to those communities. We upstaffed 4 four-wheel drive fire engines, 4 crews, those were fire hand crews, 4 heavy equipment operators, and the heavy equipment operators that we staffed were multi-use for snow blowers and skid steers, loaders, and that type of equipment. We also upstaffed 4 saw teams. And a saw team is 2 individuals on a utility that have the ability to cut larger diameter trees than the normal trained firefighter. With those, and on top of that, we upstaffed the technical rescue team with leadership. The pre-positioning that we did for these teams, we put the 4-wheel drive engines up on the I-80 corridor. The SAW teams were also spread out between Placer County and Nevada County line up Highway 174 and the I-80 corridor. With that, I want to go into some of our response highlights. This one. So I like to take this picture. This was Tuesday night. This was a snapshot of how heavy the snow actually was weighting down the trees. You see events like this on the East Coast. Very seldom do you see it like this much weight on the trees on the West Coast in such a short amount of time. So this was Tuesday night. That leads into the weight on the trees, specifically taking down trees of this size. This is a 40 dBH tree. There's not too many of those trees around. The reason why I put this on here is that this tree not only blocked a road, but it took 14 people that are not in this picture that are helping out to remove the tree, to cut it into manageable sizes and move it off. It also took a heavy equipment operator. So the amount of time on each of these events could be, anywhere between 5 and 8 hours before we're able to move to the next event. Again, this is a picture of our heavy equipment operators using the snow blowers. This was up at Forest Hill Station 88, helping our neighbors out, trying to get them to where they can get their equipment in and out of their station. This picture, again, is just to paint a picture of how much it snowed in such a short amount of time. If you notice, the fire engines are chained up in maximum. So they have their four-wheel drive fire engines, and they have chains on the front and rear drive tires. And this was something this wasn't a call that we were coming from. This was just the Alta station and the Colfax station out helping their community. And like I say, a third of their time they're spent in these communities, so they're a part of the communities. My total call volumes for Placer County Fire from the 26th till today was 294 calls. 150 of them were medical aids, and 60 of them were storm related. But those are the only ones that were initiated per 911. The fire crews, for the amount of time that we were out there, and currently they're always out patrolling, always out helping. They're members of the community. They have direct contact with members of the community, like Frank in Alpine Meadows. He's kind of the mayor of the area. They had a bunch of trees down, had access issues. We were with Placer County Sheriffs and their snowmobile teams, and he coordinated how we should best get in there to help. And then when PG&E and Brent Stanglin came, again, working in cooperations and coordinated with the residents of the subdivisions, we were able to get PG&E to where they needed to go and get the line stringed up fairly fast. And then this is what kicked it off for us. Tuesday night was a 50-car pileup on I-80. There was only 5 transported patients out of this call, but it left 15 people without vehicles. The snow front was coming in. We were worried about their well-being, so we coordinated with AMR, and we loaded everybody up in 3 ambulances, including kids and dogs, and drove them to Auburn headquarters, where we greeted them in the training room with coffee, donuts, and cookies. And then again, with a coordinated effort with HHS, Mike Romero secured us hotel rooms. And then from there, we transported the ones that needed to stay until they had somebody come up to get them. And the other ones we sat with until they had riders come up from wherever they were from. Most of them were from Sacramento. That call started at 2 p.m. and the last person left Auburn headquarters at 10:30 at night. So again, it was probably 11 to 15 people committed to getting everybody home and seeing it all the way through. This picture is just kind of giving you a snapshot of how we get people out of their houses during a storm event. A call for a welfare check goes out to the sheriffs. Sheriffs call us. They need extra help, and we send out the guys with the sked. We wrap everybody up, keep them warm. We put them in a flexible plastic sled that we call a sked, and then we walk them out. This looks rough, but it's a lot safer than a gurney or anything like that. It keeps them low center of gravity. We can control them. We keep them warm. and we can move right along the snow at a pretty good pace. And with that, I end my presentation, and I'll pass it off to Matt Randall. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, Ken's going first.
I'll go first. Good afternoon. Ken Graham with the Department of Public Works. I think take a few minutes and talk about what typically happens in a snow event. So even for our community to understand how we go about plowing, how it impacts them, and how this really changed. And then I think we're going to turn it over to Matt, who's going to talk about how we adapted in this storm to try to do as much plowing as quickly as we could. So first off, you've heard it before, a large amount of snow. Depth as well as breadth. It was everywhere. And compounding that is there was already a lot of snow on the ground when we had these storms come in. And so that made it hard. We had the highway road closures, Interstate 80. This has been happening more in years lately where we have these closures happening. Whiteout conditions, accidents, whatever the case may be, they limit our ability in order to get our resources and our supplies to where they need to be. We've had moments, all fortunately never came about, where fuel availability came very low. I think even gas stations in the basin had a hard time staying in supply of particularly diesel fuel. And we burn it very quickly when we have a full range of activities going on up there. Mix that with all the traffic going on up there, equipment breakdowns that occur when you're running equipment, and people, long hours, hard hours, moving a lot of snow. So the typical plan that we have when we do snow, particularly later in the season, we already have a lot of snow on the side of the shoulders of the road. Our focus is on getting one lane of traffic, just one, everywhere for emergency personnel. We want to make sure people have access to where they need to go. And we do that before we go the next step, which is now that you got this snow that's pushed up against the snow that had been pushed up from previous storms, and we use our rotary snow plows or snow blowers. You're going to find out a little bit more about that. And we actually have to blow that snow up and over the top of the existing berm that's already been created. That is the second step to get that second traffic lane. And then after that, we go back to clean up intersections, clean up areas to make it smoother and nicer for everybody who's going to be traveling down that. We do that all the same time because it usually takes days to do that. We're also putting down sand, conducting ice control, because a lot of these roads can become skating rinks, particularly at intersections where people are trying to slow down and their wheels locked up. So we're putting down a lot of sand to ensure that, or to minimize the chance of that happening. There's always also this question, so that's how we go about actually doing it on any given road. So there's always going to be this period of one lane, and it's going to take a while before we get to the second lane. It's a whole new group of equipment, our blowers, that end up doing that function. But then there's always a concern that people have about, hey, why aren't you in my district? You're not helping me, you're helping someone else, somewhere, wherever that may be. In Tahoe, we've broken our area down into 10 zones. Each of those zones is designed so that when we put a plow in there, under good circumstances, they're not always good, but under regular circumstances with a experienced operator, we can get done and plow that zone in one shift, which is typically about 12 hours. Doesn't always work that way, but that's the intent. That way, we can point to everybody and all of our citizens saying, hey, whatever zone you're in, we've got a piece of equipment there, roughly doing the same level of work as everywhere else. There are a couple exceptions to that because our priority areas are essential facilities and schools. We do those first, and we will typically put an extra level of effort in making sure we can get people to those facilities. In addition to that, your board has approved transit occupancy tax funding, TOT funding derived by the visitors who come to our area who have impacts, and to mitigate those impacts, you've dedicated amount of money that we get a private contractor to help serve the areas at the resorts. What that does is frees up some of the time of our people to go into the other portions of the community to get that work done. You're going to find out a little bit more about that in a moment too. And that's all wrapped around when the snow's falling heavy. We're going to 24-hour operations, 7 days a week, very intense for a long period of time until we get the area cleaned up. We're not always able to have somebody everywhere 24 hours, but we have people working 24 hours. Everyone's on board, everyone's doing their job. And so, real quick, want to show about You saw Dave had a slide about the monthly totals. Here's the average annual totals of snowfall, again, at the Central Sierra Snow Lab. On the far right, you'll see we have, 496 inches to date. The average is 265 for a year. We're not even done with the year yet, and we're at 496. In fact, I think this was the end of February. I'm assuming we're well over 500. You'll notice we do have other years that have these high snow totals. Nothing quite as high as this year, and like I said, we haven't stopped yet, but it gives you an idea, first off, of the depth, just how much snow is falling. The next place to take a look at is this breadth, how far it's falling. Normally, we talk about 5,000 to 8,000 feet. That's a lot of times what you'll hear the snow levels at. We've got about 200 miles of roadway. That's pretty much Blue Canyon all the way to the eastern end of the county. That's where we're doing snow removal operations every time, well, not every time, but most of the time it snows, we're in those areas plowing snow. And then that snow level starts dropping. And so you start going into the blue area, that 3,000 to 5,000 foot level. That's about Dutch Flat, little somewhere below Alta. We get those roadways. That's another 100 miles of roadway now, an extra 50% increase in the amount of roads we need to plow. But then the snow comes even further down like it has. You get to the 2,000, 3,000 feet. 2,000 is probably just below Colfax. And when you get in that, we pick up another 100 miles of road. Now we're double the amount we usually do. We're doing 400 miles of plowing. And of course, in some of these latest storms, we actually were even below Colfax and even picking up more mileage. So I think it puts a little perspective that, you know, we're used to when we're working just in the purple area, we move resources up to Tahoe, lots of resources, everything that we can. This time, we had to retain some resources for this side of the hill to help all of our communities on the western slope too. And again, this is all wrapped around the idea of there's a lot of other storm damage, down trees, flooding, and things like that that our folks are working on. So that's kind of how it typically works. And so I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt, because really what we're here about is talk about the last couple of weeks and even this entire season about what's happening.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Matt Randall, Road Maintenance Division Manager for Public Works. So happy to be here. You know, I think the way that we started, road maintenance, there's a lot of kind of lay meteorologists, I would say. I think when we saw this was going to be a big one, the urgency starts. There's already urgency, you know, when the snow starts falling and you're trying to get the roads clear, but it really starts in the beginning when you see the forecast for a big storm. And so the arrangements that are made ahead of time, I mean, and it's really, Donnie Francis, our assistant road superintendent, which is back here working with, you know, our snow district foreman in Tahoe, Colfax, and Forest Hill, just to arrange resources, which is people, equipment, just what do you need. And so each of those snow districts are regularly staffed with about 8 or 9 people each, so that's about 27 people in the snow districts. So for this storm, we actually arranged another 25 people from the western districts to come up and help plow snow. So you double our mileage, you know, from 219 miles up to around, you know, 500. We need twice the number of people to do the work too. So those arrangements were made ahead of time, primarily with Donnie and the staff. And I think just to echo too what Ken said too, this also, we need staff in the western districts because we had things happen in those as well, down trees, things like that as well. So we can't send everybody up, but I think that a lot of people up plowing snow and we were spread, you know, pretty thin. So the next couple of slides here, again, when we saw this was a big one and we knew we were going to be here, and it's just good practice as well to start taking some pictures, partly for our own records, but also for the public, and just to show you, this is what it's like, what you see if you're an equipment operator, just to give you a feeling. So I've got the next couple of slides are just pictures, and a couple of stories that are associated with these. In the upper left-hand side, Tahoe, that's in the Grand Lebacan area. You know, as we were plowing, and we plow, so all of these operators will plow in 12-hour shifts, 24 hours a day, so 2 12-hour shifts. And so the reports that I was getting was during these shifts, you know, between 2 and 4 feet of snow would fall. So by the end of the shift, if you look out the back of your grader, which is that upper left-hand corner, there'd be a blanket of snow waiting for the next operator to go clear. So just a lot of challenges there. Once you're done, you think you're done, but you keep going. On the lower left-hand corner, there's a snow blower there, removing snow from the avalanche area there at Shirley Canyon Road in Olympic Valley. So just a couple of things to notice right there. There were things and objects buried in this snow. The little specks are trees, things like that. And these snow blowers they're not chippers, they're intended to blow snow. So more challenges just taking care of the equipment, doing the job, but also just being careful. And also just with the avalanche too, another just testimony to the roads team, but also working with Sheriff. You know, the night when the avalanche happened, trying to make sure there was access, we dispatched a plow operator to Olympic Valley just to make sure there was access, and worked with Sheriff and Search and Rescue just to make sure there was access for people who needed to evacuate. So just appreciate the relationships and working, I think, together as a county team. The lower right-hand corner is just a screenshot from a video. I would have loved to show the video. If you want it, I can give it to you afterwards. But it's a video of Serene Lakes, which is our highest, snow neighborhood. This was taken at night. When you're removing snow, blowing snow at night, this is what it looks like with the high snow banks. I mean, if you just imagine too, this was taken between two of the big events on Saturday, but another foot or two of snow, and trying to, pitch that snow over those snow banks. By the way, behind the snow banks are houses and all sorts of other objects that you need to miss. And the little holes are driveways, if you just noticed in that picture. So again, just trying to give you an idea of what it's like out and working in these areas. Then the upper right, the top two there's top two pictures on the upper right-hand side, just snow blowers working in the Tahoe area, tough visibility. And I think that the other thing that was happening was so much snow that was falling that, like Ken mentioned, our typical way would be use the graders and push the snow to the side. There were some situations where we just needed to use the blowers because it had accumulated so much. And the blowers go a lot slower than the graders that go a few miles an hour, so it takes more time to do the work. But then just a couple more pictures here. The top picture, Meadow Vista, that's Applegate Road, just what it looked like, and you might have been out driving around, but these are roads that needed to be plowed low as Meadow Vista. So definitely tricky down there. Then the bottom two pictures were in the Gold Run area. And then just another story, and it's not as big of a tree as Chief Wessner, but we had trees and roads too. I don't know if this is one we worked on together, but just another complication like last year with trees and utilities on the ground. You really can't get in and clear the road if there are utilities and other objects in the way. So that was something, and just other kudos too to working with CAL FIRE and Chief Wessner on issues like this. These are things we work together on too, and it's just it's a tremendous help for the road crews. And then just lastly, some pictures of Forest Hill. I think the Veterans Hall on the left, and just the amount of snow. The upper right-hand picture is Forest Hill Road and Elliott Ranch, and you can just see the size of the snow berm next to our truck. And then just in town, just the snow berms there in front of the Welcome to Forest Hill sign. So just lots and lots of snow everywhere, trying to give you a feeling of what it was like. So Ken mentioned these are really our primary tools, but wanted to just talk a little bit about tools and resources, some fun facts. The grader there on the left-hand side, again, probably our primary snow removal piece of equipment, the blowers in the middle, and then the push plow and combination push plow and sanders that work, when there's a little bit of less snow. But a couple of, to start out, I mentioned working 24 hours. Just in the last couple of weeks, estimate around 2,000 hours of staff overtime, so just a lot of overtime and extra work put in. So far this season, because, we had big storms over the holidays too. We've probably spent around about $2 million on snow expenditures itself. Just want to give big kudos to to our fleet and mechanic staff behind the scene because, we had somewhere between 20 or so breakdowns during the storm. That's snow blowers, graders, just different pieces of equipment that went down, and not necessarily due to age or driver error, operator error, anything like that, but just we were pushing the equipment to its very, very limit. And the mechanics were also working 24 hours a day out getting us going. And we really didn't have any equipment that went down for long periods of time. They got us back up and running pretty quickly. And right now with those breakdowns, everything but probably one or two pieces of equipment is up and operating. So, which you think about arranging the parts, doing the work to fix it. I think that's just another incredible effort. Ken mentioned private sector and the support we get from contractors too. So we had kind of our three primary snow removal contractors that we set up ahead of time. If we need help, can we call you? And they definitely helped with the snow removal effort in Tahoe. Plus we added a snow removal contractor in Tahoe. We also added another rental company and contractor to help us rent equipment. And we rented, in fact, a grader, a push plow, a little mini snow blower. So rental equipment as well as getting help plowing snow in the Blue Canyon area. So without them, just appreciate our contractor friends and relationships too, which also just have to mention procurement. I think, when I call Brett or procurement staff, they probably get a little bit of anxiety during, before storms, but they worked fast to get us what we needed when we needed it. So that's something I know just from DPW and the road division, we really appreciated very much too. Ken mentioned fuel, and yep, we used some of the private filling stations there in Kings Beach and Tahoe City. But some of it was attributed to I-80 being closed, but I think by the skin of our teeth, we got some fuel deliveries, in the storm, and so really nothing went down. We weren't necessarily waiting for fuel for our equipment. Our staff is pretty creative when we need fuel. And then just also, there's other behind the scenes, just again, coordination with sheriff on needs, the school districts too, who want to open school, although there wasn't much school last week. I think still there's an interest in getting the roads open so that can happen. So all of those types of things happening behind the scenes. So, this is just one of my favorite pictures we have. This wasn't from this year. It was a little bit this is in Serene Lakes with a couple of our operators. And, I mentioned the urgency and the hard work. I think you all know how hard everybody's working, but I think just, the credit just goes to the operators and the people that are doing the work. I always thought I had a pretty solid and good work ethic, but these are people who have worked, several weeks straight, 12 plus hours a day, haven't heard complaints. They just get the job done. So definitely want to acknowledge the great effort. And then just to kind of put a bow on it, I'm sure there's a question, Supervisor Gustafson, and as far as what are the roads looking like right now? And we've gotten everything open except for there are a couple of roads, one in the Cape Horn area and then also in Dutch Flat where we're working with utilities to get them open. But everything else is open, at least one lane, and widening out. As Ken mentioned, there's some lanes, roads that are open to two. And I think, with the forecast that's coming, there's a little bit of pressure to widen things out as much as we can to the snow stakes where we have our drainage systems. If it rains low, we want to be prepared to make sure we're addressing any potential rain that comes too. So nobody's taking a break yet. I think there's a little bit funny that came up during one of our calls with snow fatigue has been kind of floated around. We definitely, I think all of us have a little bit of snow fatigue, so we're looking, hoping for a break here soon, but still no complaints. People are working hard and trying to get the job done. So with that, hand it back to Dave. Oh.
questions, and then just to remind the board, of course, the action that before you this afternoon is to adopt a resolution to ratify a proclamation of the existence of a local emergency in Placer County due to the late February winter storms.
Oh, thank you. Before I ask any of the board members, I just want to say what a tremendous team collaboration, working together consistently. It's been unbelievable, the amount of work that's been done over this, and I really appreciate it. Matt, I can't thank you enough for recognizing the poor guys in the shop that are fixing that equipment, because I know what it's like to pick up a cold wrench and try to work. So thank you so much for recognizing them. I appreciate that.
Well, I want to mention too, not even just in the shop, a lot of these repairs happen in the field where it's
Right.
even colder too, so, but
I
yeah,
know.
thanks for,
All right,
agreed.
Thank you. Supervisor Gore.
No real questions, but thank you very much for the update, and really thank you for all the work you and your teams have done to really help our residents. You know, you're mentioning, Matt, that folks are working, long shifts and working really hard, and it really has made a difference, right? Because these are our community members, our residents, and knowing that all of you are there to help, whether it's a medical issue or somebody getting stuck in a home, it really makes a difference. So just thank you. I know we all really appreciate it, but you all have gone above and beyond. And I guess we shouldn't, we expect it, right, because you all do it, but not every community has the response and the willingness of folks to work together like you all do, and it really is another reason why I think we've got just a terrific county.
Supervisor Landon.
I'll just echo what Supervisor Gore said, and I just want to say thank you. I'm so proud of all of you, and just what a testament to the collaboration that all of you have together. I think it's amazing and incredibly unique, as Supervisor Gore said. I don't think it's like this everywhere, so thank you for working long hours. And I have never had a negative response from any of you when I've asked for assistance with anything, and so thank you for your positive attitudes and just your cheerfulness and doing your job, and you're doing excellent work, so thank you.
Supervisor Jones.
Yes, awesome, awesome. I'm so glad you guys included pictures, because, there's nothing that we can relate to better than actually seeing everybody in action. And when you're talking about standing out in the cold and working on parts, if any of us have ever stood outside holding the flashlight while somebody's trying to put chains on your car, at 8:30 at night, you know how cold and freezing it is. And that's not to say any of the work that your folks have done. So I just say awesome. You guys are wonderful. And the relationship between all of our law enforcement, whether it's CAL FIRE, PCSO, Sheriff, it's wonderful. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate everything you do.
Thank you. Supervisor Gustafson, I see you waving your hand.
Well, I want to echo what everybody has said. What a tremendous effort we had throughout all these storms. And, because we've been through fires and past winter storms, and we've done a lot of recognition of our public safety. Matt, I just wanted to focus on Matt Randall for a couple minutes to say, everybody wants their road plowed first, Matt. And everybody who is worried they've been forgotten, their road isn't open. When is it going to be opened? You have been willing to pick up the phone and call, whether it's the superintendent of schools looking to get school districts back up and running, or constituents concerned. Matt, you and your team have done a tremendous job. I got a chance actually to drive through Saturday morning through the Dutch Flat area, because I was hearing there was a lot of complaints again with the roads, and they were all passable. Yes, they were narrow, but in general, the Dutch Flat roads are narrow. And I think your crew, I could see the remnants of tree debris everywhere, and it was just an amazing effort, I'm sure, to get through all of that. But I'll leave this with, are there other equipment needs or other supplies that you think, given these storms, we would be better off having, or you would recommend if we had a budget for those? Because again, the supervisors, we don't get to plow those roads. That we do get to help with funding needs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one of the things, while it was convenient, well, and timely that we rented, the pieces of equipment we rented would be kind of the things that come to mind right off the bat. And with some of which was, we rented a grader, we rented a push plow. Those were probably the two things. And the other thing that, and I feel, I don't want to be too greedy.
Doesn't mean we're gonna fund it.
Yeah, okay, there we go, right. Well, no, but I think just the kind of the three core pieces of equipment we showed at the end, having more of those, because I think in an emergency situation like this, the blowers too, with so much snow, we had to kind of pivot from graders to the bigger equipment that could move more snow. That was a need too. And so I don't know if you want to weigh in on this too.
Well, as part of our budget process, we are having conversations with the CEO's office about things that we might want to consider, because it is all about a level of service and what we try to maintain. I think it's important to note, when you look at those snow blowers, those are approaching $1 million each. When you're talking about those motor graders, are $400,000 plus each. It is a large investment. But I will say, based on your board's leadership from the past, because I had to go back in my brain, because I've been here a while. When I first started here, our average snow blowers we had a whole host of them were over 30 years old. We had some that were 40 plus, they were older than me at the time. And then we had two new ones. They were the two new ones when I first came here. So an average of well over 30 years. Today, our oldest blowers are the two that were the newest when we first started. And those are only 20, 25 years old. Your board has made a big commitment to trying to more modernize the fleet. There's more work to be done, though. We're not where we want to be. And that's even true with the graders, where our graders were 30 plus years. All of them were. And now the oldest one, again, is now in the 2000 era. They're about 20 years old. So we've come a long way. We've got a long way still to go. And there will be a discussion about how many pieces. It'd sure be nice to have a couple spares. Today, we don't have spares. Today, we have one for everything we need. And if one breaks down or something happens a little weird, we're left trying to rent and do other things. And these are pieces of equipment very hard to rent. You don't rent them very often. Sometimes we get lucky and we find someone who has one. And so there'll be some discussions later on in the season. So appreciate, though, having it brought up.
Yeah.
Well, I remember those old plows and blowers coming by, so it's great to see updated equipment. And then the other thing I thought, we learn from every one of these, and I know the staff do a debrief, and we've had far too many emergencies lately. But one other thought is, if there was a way to work with the PIO to have a road status report and some facts so that people can be assured we're going to get to them, and that the strategy you just described, I don't know how many in our public really understand that strategy. So, that you are coming back, but there's a lot of miles of road to plow. So it goes without saying that some of the frustration we hear is just people not understanding the process. And if the PIO could help on that, so that, and we should name all the equipment like they're doing in all these other areas where pet names. I saw some cute names in South Lake Tahoe on their equipment. So it's fun. Have naming competitions. And then the final thing, I had a question for Dave. Dave, you've heard about the overtime, you've heard about all the extra equipment rentals. And with this declaration today, do we have a chance to still come under the state's emergency declaration to recoup some of those funds?
So we do, and we've already reached out to, of course, not only is it the county's costs that come into play with that, but all of the other agencies that are out there working hard as well. We've reached out to all of them. That information is coming in as we speak. And the state's given us until Thursday to get that information into them for further consideration. So we're working hard to get that information to them, and we'll absolutely get it in by the deadline for further consideration.
Great, thank you so much. I appreciate it. That was a lot of the questions when people saw the map come out. And, you know, we were aware that we were making sure of what we had in front of us before we made that declaration. I understand that, but there was a lot of frustration, you know this, and well, meaning folks were feeling we were left out by the state. So I'm glad that we're taking our time, but getting all of these expenses in so that we can hopefully get reimbursed and have some money to buy all that new equipment we need. And I didn't mean to pass over Ty and Ryan. Our first responders always do a tremendous job, and you didn't even mention the propane tank in the middle of the night and pumping all that out, being up in Serene Lakes round the clock on that, and some of the other dangers you all encounter out there. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and on behalf of everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you, Supervisor. Is there any public comment? Does anyone from the public wish to, or anyone from our amazing staff wish to say anything on this issue? I see none. And then, so before I turn it over to the board to make a motion, Jane Christensen has some closing comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to echo the tremendous thanks from the board to our multidisciplinary team. And for the board's information, specifically on the EOC front, many of you are aware that we have had law and fire resources embedded in our EOC in recent months. And you've seen it in our EOC report outs, and as our community has experienced with the coordinated emergency response. More to come on this new EOC model at your March 28th board meeting, with great appreciation to Dave Atkinson, to Sheriff Wu, and Placer County CAL FIRE Unit Chief Estes for your work to kind of bring this integrated model to fruition.
Okay, thank you.
On that note, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution to ratify the proclamation of a local emergency in Placer County due to the 2023 February winter storm.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Oh, yeah. So motion by Supervisor Jones, second by Supervisor Gustafson. This is a roll call vote.
Gore? Aye. Landon?
Yes.
Jones? Aye. Gustafson?
Aye.
Holmes?
Aye. All right, congratulations, there. Thank you all.
Thank you, board. Appreciate the support as
All
always.
of you people do in all your different departments. I know it's a team effort altogether, and we really appreciate it. And that concludes we were adjourned now to our regular meeting in March 14th, 2023.